Hey, what's up guys, Benny here. Now, one of the most important things that you need to have in order to be successful in Apex Legends or any first-person shooter is to have great aim. You need to have the ability to be able to land your shots on your opponent on a consistent basis from any range. Now, there's a few things that you can do to help you get better aim on Apex Legends, which I'm going to run you through in this video. There will be some tips and advice for everyone, whether you're a beginner or a skilled player or playing on console or PC, and if you have any tips of your own, please do make sure to share them down in the comments below. On my channel, I've already gone through in detail some of the best overall settings to use for Apex Legends, but there is one setting in particular that is crucial to having a good aim, and that is your sensitivity. I see so many players who think that having a high sensitivity means that they'll be a better player, and that really is just not the case. Most console FPS pros traditionally use lower sensitivity because you get far greater control over your aim when making the small adjustments that you have to make during those medium range gunfights. There are some benefits to a high sensitivity, such as being able to turn faster if you get shot in the back, but really you never want to allow this to happen, and that just comes down to working on your overall game sense. So I would recommend using a 4 or 3 sensitivity depending on which one you personally prefer, and then making your ADS sensitivity one lower than that, so either a 3 or a 2. And I genuinely believe that using a low sensitivity is the first thing that every single player can do before hopping into a match to have a significant improvement on their overall accuracy. Though, of course, if you've been using a high sensitivity for a long period of time, it may feel quite alien, so just over time, drop it by 1 at a time so it's not such a drastic change, and you'll quickly notice at how much more consistent you are at landing your shots at long range especially. Though of course sensitivity does all come down to personal preference, I just think having a lower sensitivity is going to give you better results in the long run. Next, there is one thing that every single player can do to significantly improve their aim in Apex Legends, and that is to learn the weapons, because this game has something that is actually pretty unique with every weapon in the game, and that's that every weapon behaves exactly the same every single time that you fire it. Which means that you can learn and master a weapon's recoil pattern, so the more you use it, the more you know how to control the kick and the recoil of the weapon at all ranges. So you can get to the point where you can control the gun in such a way that you can do things like land more headshots or ensure that all your shots are landing center mass, so you'll be able to take down enemies pretty darn quickly. And that's something to bear in mind, as over time you'll get used to how a gun reacts based on the sensitivity and response curve that you use, so be careful when changing your settings and just make sure that you don't do it too often, as it will affect your muscle memory. Also, the last place you want to be testing weapons to understand the weapon's recoil is in a real match. So something that I would advise doing is hopping into the training range where you can pick up every single gun available in Apex Legends and test it against the targets, and you'll be able to see how each gun behaves to give you a better idea of how to use it in game. One thing to remember though is that in the training range there are currently no weapon attachments, so attachments like a stock or barrel will also change how the gun behaves by reducing the gun's recoil and sway, and that's just something that you'll learn over time from playing Apex Legends. You'll pick things up like knowing that your first shot with the wingman in hipfire will go dead center, or that you're better off burst firing with the flatline so you can land your shots. So make sure you know how to get the most out of the weapon that you pick up, so you'll come out on top in most gunfights. The last situation you ever want to be in Apex Legends is having a gun in your hand, not knowing how to get the most out of it. Is this actually a burst gun or is it a single fire? Learn the weapons and your aim will improve so much. This next tip is something that Respawn have done amazingly well with in Apex Legends, and you'll mainly take advantage of it while using weapons like the longbow, but on certain scopes it will tell you the exact distance of what you're aiming at. Then on the scope's crosshairs there are little numbered markers which you'll want to line the target up with depending on the distance. If the target is 200 meters away, you'll want to line your target up with the 2. 300 meters, the 3, and so on. It's a small addition, but something that will help you hit more shots at a distance rather than trying to guess the gun's bullet drop and distance of your target, so take advantage of it. This next tip on improving your aim is actually something that I learned to do back when I was playing competitive Call of Duty, and it made a big difference to me and carries across to any first-person shooter that you'll play, and it's called centering. Centering is where you position your crosshairs whilst you're moving around the map, and is all about making sure that you're always ready for a gunfight. When you're approaching a door, your crosshairs should always be pointing at that doorway, as it's the current potential danger point where an enemy could be coming from. That could be anything from the crest of the hill to a window. Whichever place you believe an enemy could be about to come from is where you should have your crosshairs placed. Getting into the habit of doing this will mean that when an enemy does appear, you'll be able to react far quicker than they will and get the first shot off, as you'll already have your aim in the right place, so we'll only need to aim down sight and start shooting, while your opponent will have to track their crosshairs onto you before they can return fire, and in a game as fast as Apex Legends, it'll already be too late. This is something that does take practice, but make a conscious effort to do it and you'll see a huge improvement to not only your aim, but also your overall success on Apex Legends and any shooter that you play. Now, I already touched on this next tip to improve your aim earlier on in the video, but take advantage of the game's training range to try out settings, to get comfortable with the game's weapons, and also to warm up before getting into a match. There's nothing worse than getting into your first gunfight cold, especially if the opponent is already warmed up, as usually you'll end up back in the lobby. I'll normally spend 5 to 10 minutes whilst waiting for my friends, shooting targets, snapping from target to target just to get my aim on point. And if there's a new weapon added to the game like the Havoc was, it's a good place to get your hands on the gun and understand what it's good at before picking it up in a match for the first time and it being a bit of a surprise. This next tip is one that you'll find will start to help you a lot more when you begin to take it into account before getting into a gunfight. Use opponents' Legends hitboxes against them. One of the big features in Apex Legends is that different Legends have different hitboxes, so it's easier or harder to hit. If you're using a sniper and about to open up against an enemy squad, you might want to aim for their Gibraltar rather than their Wraith to help your team get the first pick, because Gibraltar's hitbox is far larger, so it'll be much harder for you to miss. A big target usually is an easier to kill to pick up, and is something I'll cover properly in a future video, but try to take down the bigger targets at a distance and deal with the smaller Legends in close quarter combat if it's an option. Another big thing you can do to improve your accuracy in Apex Legends is to burst fire with automatic weapons. Other than the R301, which is practically a laser beam, all other automatic weapons work a lot better if you fire in short bursts at medium range. It'll allow you to land your shots at a distance far more consistently. It's so easy to lose composure and panic when an opponent is running at you and just hold down the trigger, but learning to fire in short bursts and keeping calm will help improve your aim, as it's those high pressure scenarios where you'll normally find your aim gets a bit wobbly. Though this next tip may sound a bit cliche, but the biggest tip I can give you to improve your aim is practice. Take these tips into account, use that lower sensitivity, work on centering your crosshairs, and you'll find yourself being able to pick up a lot more kills in a match and very quickly see an improvement in your gameplay. Over the years, I've spent thousands of hours in first-person shooters, constantly using a lower sensitivity and working on my positioning in gunfights so I don't get out-positioned and shot in the back, so I'm never in need of that high sensitivity that allows you to turn around quickly when you get shot in the back. Also, remember, you don't need to go for headshots with an automatic weapon. Aim for the body, and most guns' natural recoil will take you towards the head to finish the target. The only guns in the game you want to aim for the head are guns like the G7 Scout, Longbow, or Wingman, where you get a huge damage increase from landing those shots, as your gun has a much lower fire rate. But those are my 8 main tips for improving your aim in Apex Legends. I really hope that these tips help you in the long term, and believe me, it's a skill that will carry across to other first-person shooters that you play, so put in the time to make your aim as good as you possibly can. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more Apex Legends content, share any tips you have down in the comments below, and smash that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.